Welcome back. We have more for you now on what is the top story this morning. The decision just a half an hour ago from the Supreme Court of Canada to uphold the laws on marijuana, that they remain unconstitutional. The man on your screen is Tony Cavino, head of the Canadian Police Association. Let's listen to his reaction.
Not to banalize marijuana. It is a drug.
What about the federal government? They're reviving the decriminalization bill.
Well, if they do, like I said, and we'll continue to meet with them and try to influence them in a positive way. We think that something should be done. Absolutely. We should start first with a strong national drug strategy. That should be the first thing to do. One that would be based on the education and in prevention. Those are the tools, those are the things we should be doing. And concerning banalization of marijuana, we're sending such a wrong message to the youth, to the Canadian citizen. I think we should stop that. It's affecting everybody. And look everywhere, since about 2 years, how much it increased in grow-ups. You have more and more grow-ups across the country. You have places now where organized crime, what they do, they rent or buy houses in very quiet neighborhood. You wouldn't see that years ago, but it's going worse and worse. Why? Because organized crime, because drug dealers know that they have a lot of money to make out of that. And even with Bill C-38, there are many flaws in that bill, and especially the one that says under 15 grams, that there won't be any more discretion for police officer. The message that they're sending is the fact that now organized crime or major drug dealers, they'll be able to recruit more and more drug dealers, saying, well, now the only thing you have to do is carry 14 grams. When you carry 14 grams, if you're stopped by a police officer, just say it's for personal use, they're going to give you a fine, and we're going to pay that fine. So it's like, you know, sending a clear message, hey, we're going to be able to recruit so many people to sell drugs. And that is very, very scary. C'est définitivement un argument de poids, la décision de la Cour suprême. Je pense que c'est dans les premières grandes étapes où on vient de saisir les gens en disant, bon, écoutez, là, c'est pas une façon de vivre, d'abuser des drogues, de consommer des drogues. Je pense que ce message-là...
Tony Cavino from the Canadian Police Association reacting to the Supreme Court judgment in the foyer of the Supreme Court building in Ottawa, saying that's a very heavy, a significant decision on the part of the top court in the land, saying that it says definitively to people that this is not a way of life, as we listen to him as expressing his endorsement for the Supreme Court judgment. We had about a half an hour ago the Supreme Court of Canada ruling by a 6-3 decision that the marijuana laws in this country will remain as they are, upholding the laws, and to simple possession is unconstitutional. Tony Cavino from the Canadian Police Association saying that he does not want the Paul Martin government to continue to move towards a softer stance on simple possession and marijuana use, that he will continue to meet with the new government and to influence them in their policy direction and to see, in fact, where they're planning to go, calling for a national drug strategy and encouraging the government to continue to send a strong message that that drug use is wrong and it potentially would allow for criminal operations to recruit more and more drug dealers. We'll listen to Mr. Cavino. If he speaks in English, we'll be back to you with that answer. This is the Canadian Police Association reaction.
Well, first of all, it's a first step, saying that I don't see in this message that it's banalizing marijuana now, because it's not a way of living to use drugs. The other thing is that I'm not sure that the government has set his mind right now on what they want to go ahead with. We'll see with the new Prime Minister and the new Minister of Justice and the new Deputy Prime Minister who's in charge of public security. We're going to be talking with them. We're going to try to explain them. They should put emphasis on the strong national drug strategy.
I'm sorry, did you say banalize?
Well, it sends them...
Marijuana banal, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I said this message here doesn't send a message like saying that marijuana is banalized compared to what we've heard for the past 2 years now. It's been, for the past 2 years, we've heard so many messages saying, well, marijuana is not harmful, marijuana is not a problem. You remember even a statement, even if it was a joke from the previous Prime Minister, saying that if the bill passes, well, he might have a joint in one hand and the fine and the money to pay the fine on the other hand. I don't think that this Prime Minister will go ahead and say a comment like this one.
But sir, this Prime Minister's already already joked about having
That's Tony Canavino, once again, the Canadian Police Association, the reaction in Ottawa to the Supreme Court of Canada ruling this morning, just about a half an hour ago, to uphold Canada's laws on marijuana use, simple possession of marijuana. They had been challenged in 3 separate cases, arguing that it was a violation of constitutional rights against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The judgment came back from the top court 6-3 in favor of upholding the current law. And the very key part of the judgment today from the top court, it refers the matter back to Parliament for new laws, if indeed that's what the Parliament considers justified, but refers the matters back to Parliament. And again, an issue for Paul Martin as his new government begins the new year and looks toward a new marijuana policy and a new package of legislation. Just before the news of this hour and our top story today, Canada's Supreme Court is set to rule on the possession of marijuana. It will answer this question: does the current federal law on pot violate the Charter of Rights? Essentially, do people have the right to have pot in their possession? For more, we go live to the CBC's Carolyn Dunn in Ottawa, going to be covering the ruling in just about 2 hours' time, I guess. Carolyn, can you give us a bit of background on this issue before the top court?
Well, this is actually a ruling on 3 different cases, and they are possession cases, but they range from the possession of half an unsmoked joint of marijuana all the way up to hundreds of grams of marijuana that were seized from a harm reduction club. And basically what the 3 appellants are going forth and saying, first of all, is that marijuana is not a harmful enough substance to warrant the kind of criminal sanctions that are on Canada's books right now. And second of all, that it violates the Charter of Rights to have those kinds of laws for possession of something that people would do or use within the privacy of their own home. Now, the court could go any number of ways on this. On one extreme, it could come out with a ruling that would completely legalize marijuana. On the other extreme, it could come up with a ruling that would uphold the current laws and say that they're just fine. Or the third option is somewhere in between. And what that in between or gray area in the middle could do is have a big, large effect on any future attempts to decriminalize possession of marijuana as opposed to legalizing it.
Which is, of course, one of the options possible for the government. Paul Martin's new government is expected to reintroduce marijuana legislation in the new year. So how, Carolyn, do you think today's decision could affect that?
Well, it really depends on what the court writes about it. There's a potential that it could actually write a framework for what Paul Martin's new proposed legislation should be. What we are hearing already from government sources is that this new proposed legislation under Paul Martin is actually going to be different than under the previous Justice Minister, Martin Cauchon, that they will actually lower the amount of pot to be decriminalized down from what was proposed earlier, 15 grams, down to maybe 5 or 10 grams, and that fines for possession of marijuana would actually be higher. So expect, even if the Supreme Court decision helps the framework today, expect any proposed legislation in the future to look a little different than what we've seen proposed earlier.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Carolyn. More from you later today, of course. The CBC's Carolyn Dunn in Ottawa.